Thank you for listening to Lone Star Community Radio. This program was broadcasted and recorded live from the LSCR studios in downtown Conroe, Texas. Lone Star Community Radio is supported by listeners like you. Donate and sponsor today. For more information on getting involved with Lone Star Community Radio, contact us at lscrstudios@gmail.com or visit us online at www.irlonestar.com.
Hey, good to have you guys back for another episode of the Bridge Podcast. I'm John Shibley, your host, of course, and as always, man, you can check us out on Tuesday mornings, 11 a.m. On Lone Star Radio, and I've got a great guest today. It was kind of interesting because I brought my son on, who's a first-year teacher and a coach, and he's getting to do exactly what his passion is, what he's dreamed of, and it was just interesting to sit across the table and talk on that level and hear just from him all the details of the things he goes through and all the journey that he, the stress he went through on making a career choice change. And so it was just awesome to hear and really proud of what he's done and what he's becoming and the impact he's making in the kids' lives here in Conroe. So I'm excited for you to hear from my son, Dawson Shibley, who's a coach and a teacher here at Conroe ISD. So check it out. Hope you enjoy it. Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Bridge Podcast, where we are connecting you in the community with our commerce around the city, leaders, people of influence, and just people doing some good stuff. And today's a little bit surreal for me. Historically, we've brought in guys who have been here for years, 40 years in a business in Conroe, grew up here, did the whole thing. And now I've got the next generation, and I want to welcome in my oldest son, Dawson Shibley. Welcome to the Bridge Podcast, dude.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So this is going to be kind of cool. This is going to be interesting. So we're going to go through some things that obviously I know the answer to, but I want you to kind of get to know Dawson's journey because he is now a teacher and a coach at his alma mater, which hadn't always been the path, but kind of in the back of his mind, always the dream, I think, if we get down to it. So, man, take the audience through you're a 4-year varsity starter in baseball at Conroe High. You went and played 4 years of college baseball. Along that way, you kind of had medical school on the radar. Mm-hmm. Tell us how that switched and where you pivoted and why.
Yeah, so all through high school and college, I wanted to be a surgeon. So I was on the pre-med track for 3 years. And throughout the summers, I would coach the incoming freshman prep team for Coach Raymer, and I loved it. It was a blast. It was more at peace than I've ever felt anywhere, was just on the baseball field, and that's kind of how it was my whole life. And so, it was just something I was doing on the side in the summer, but the closer I got to having to go to med school and stuff like that, I just wasn't at peace. I was stressed out constantly, a lot of homework, had no social life. It was not enjoyable. It was not a good time, and I realized it kind of just clicked one time when we were driving home. I was listening to a coach talk. I think it was the Paris Junior College coach talk, and it clicked on me, and I was like, that's what I want to do with my life, is just coach. It's the only place that I feel like at home is on the baseball field, and it's more surreal for me because I wanted to do it specifically at Conroe because I gave so much to that program and to this community playing, and it gave me so much back, and I think it's the only place I want to coach is Conroe because I love it here. It's where I grew up. I experienced the same thing these kids experience. And I realized early on that this is where I want to be, and that's the path I wanted to take was coaching. And so I kind of made the switch. Yeah.
And obviously I had a front row seat to all that, and we had more peace about it once you decided to do something you were passionate about and loved. And maybe for even some people listening right now that are at a crossroads, maybe kind of like you were, what would be kind of your advice? Because a lot of people take a track that they've had for years in their mind. This is what people expect of me. Now I'm just so far in that there's no turning back. What do you say to somebody? How would you help them make a decision to identify what they're passionate about and really take that leap of faith?
You hear people say it all the time, do what you're passionate, do what you love, stuff like that. But it's never too late to change. I was about as far as you could go. I'm about to take the MCAT. when I was just like, you know what, no, this isn't what I'm happy about. So it's never too late, obviously, and do what makes you happy. Life is too short. Like, you see people say that all the time, but never really act upon it. But life really is too short to do stuff that you're not going to want to do your whole life. And I know that the stress that I was going to have for my whole life as a surgeon and in med school was just not what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so if you're trying to decide it, the people that are around you that really love you probably want you to be at peace more than you do. Like, I was so worried about how all my pre-med friends are going to think I failed. All my family's going to be disappointed because I'm not a surgeon or whatever. I'm just a teacher. But in reality, they just want you to be happy. The people around you, all they care about is you're at peace and you're enjoying what you're doing. And that's, as soon as I told y'all were like, well, we've had this stress on us too. Like, we don't think you were at peace this whole time. And so whenever I told you this is what I want to do, y'all kind of had this like feeling of peace as well, which is how I knew it was what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, and parents don't ever want to. We bear the weight of what we know our kids are going through, and so we don't want that weight to track you down and trail,
right.
Follow you your whole life. And so I love that advice. And you've of course had a good career here at Conroe, and a 4-year starter on varsity. That's somewhat rare at this level of baseball, and you did that really well. And then played in college, and then a lot of kids, they get out from under the roof of the mom and dad, and they get away from hometown, and they think, wow, there's a world out here. But you always knew you were going to come back to Conroe. So, man, talk about, because we got people listening that are just locked in. They're Conroe loyal, right? Conroe faithful, Tigers at heart, a lot of people. Why did you come back? Why did you just always know? How did you always know you're going to be back here?
I mean, my experience here was just so enjoyable, and the community gave me so much as a baseball player, as an athlete in Conroe. I loved it the whole time, and I always felt loyal to Conroe and to Coach Raymer at Conroe Baseball. Like, I've always had this passion for the area, and I think part of it is just I want to give back to these kids what I got from this place. Is like I walked the same halls as them, I experienced the same hardships as them, but in the end, it's always just Conroe first, and I think that if I can give them what I experienced, they'll enjoy just as much as I did. And I don't know what it is about Conroe. It's just I left, and I loved, like, my time in college was enjoyable, but the whole time, like, you get homesick, it's a real thing. And my family's here, and it's just a good place to be. The people here are great. I love it.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to leave. Like, I don't think I'll even, obviously I don't want to close any doors ever, but I don't think I'll ever accept a job anywhere but at Conroe.
Yeah.
I think that's the place I want to be my entire career.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to watch other kids too, not just you, like kids in your class, kids that leave and go through the whole college experience, and then they come back. And I've talked to people on this show that they've been, they were Conroe Tigers, they went away, they came back, they've had businesses here for 20, 30 years because Conroe just has pretty much everything. And so, you're, like you said, you're teaching these kids now that, that was you 7, 8 years ago. And, man, how has the dynamic changed, would you say, just what kids are dealing with and versus when you were in school?
I mean, I think for my first year, what I've seen, it's way harder. They have it a lot more difficult, I think, than we had it. I think this age of social media has made it very hard on these kids. I think the dynamic, like, they are experiencing, I think, more pressure than at least that I believe that I had, is because they just constantly comparing themselves to other people on Instagram and TikTok and all these social media. And so it's definitely different. The generation has changed drastically, even in the 5 years since I was here. It's definitely different, but I mean, I think that they have it more difficult than I did, and I think that's part of why I want to help them so badly. That's why, as a teacher, I see it, and some of it's heartbreaking, like just the stuff that they're dealing with, and I'm like, I never had to deal with that in the 8th grade. And so it's stuff that I was more stressed about as like a junior in high school. It's just the dynamic has definitely changed with this generation, and I think that's why it's so important to have teachers and coaches that really do want to give back to them and aren't just here for the coaching stipend or here for the paycheck, whatever. That's not what it's about. It's about helping these kids that really are going through crap that I didn't think they should ever have to experience at this age.
Yeah. And I mean, there was a degree of social media but nothing.
It was just starting to become like I didn't get my first social media account until 8th grade or whatever it was, and like these kids have had it for 5 years now. Like, it's just starting. Everything that we experience, I think, is just starting sooner.
For sure.
And so it's definitely ramping up at least the social media aspect of it and that kind of stress that they have to deal with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first year teacher, like right out of college last May, you're coming up on a year of your first year. And I mean, you kind of got thrown in like to this craziness that is, 25 kids in a class and you have a co-teacher. And so you're dealing with social media, you're dealing with all this stuff. How have you made it fun? Because I know you, and of course I know you, but you like to have fun. And you teach and have fun while you're doing it. So even during some of the struggles that it's been hard to cope with and navigate through behavior and social media, like how have you made it fun? How have you kept them engaged like through all this social media distraction?
I mean, I told them right away, the first thing I told them was I want my class to at least be one that they feel comfortable, like they enjoy coming to. Because I know when I was in school, all the teachers that I learned the best were the ones that they made it fun. They were like relatable. They were I enjoyed going to their classroom. And the ones I didn't really learn that well, I didn't like going to their classroom. So I told them right off the rip, I was like, guys, I want to be the person that like y'all enjoy coming to class and just can be yourselves in. And so, I mean, ways to make it's hard to make it fun. I mean, it's 8th grade science. No one really wants to learn about plate tectonics when you're 14 years old. But I mean, we have fun. We play a lot of games, like we play Blookits and stuff online, Kahoots and stuff. They love that. I also kind of made it fun. I kind of started a TikTok page of like documenting my first year as a teacher and stuff like that. And they love it. Like all my kids follow it, and it's kind of blown up a little bit to where like I have 1,000 followers, and they all just like keep track of my career as a first year teacher, and they feel like I do videos with them, like rating their shoes and fun stuff like that. Like after class, I tell them if we can do our work for the first 45 minutes, we'll have that 5 minutes. We'll do like a finish the song lyric video. And so I play like old 80s music and see if they can finish the lyrics and stuff like that. So I think the number one thing in learning in general is just having fun while you do it. And so that's a couple ways I try to make it at least somewhat enjoyable.
Yeah.
As enjoyable as 8th grade science can be, because
Yeah, and I like it too because you kind of incorporate like incentives in there for them to make certain test scores, and if they average as a class this test score, or the class that has the highest test score gets a privilege in relation to like TikTok or whatever it is.
Yeah, so I did the highest class average for the Chemistry 1 test they got to do the finish the lyric video, because after the first video, all my classes were real upset. They're like, how come you didn't do it with 5th period? Why didn't 2nd period get to do it? So I was like, all right, here's the deal. Number one, the highest scoring average on the next test will get to do the finish the lyric. And so they were all locked in for the last week of reviewing for the test. And the test scores were up. It was actually like kind of impressive. They really, really wanted to do it. So yeah, incorporating the incentives, giving them something to work for, that's awesome. They loved it.
That's awesome. And I mean, I didn't see that coming. I mean, I'm watching your journey and I'm like, yeah, it's going to be a little rough. There's going to be some bumps, and first year teacher, it is what it is. And then all of a sudden these kids just like love you. Like you see them on the streets and they're like, hey, Mr. Coach Shibley. And so, I mean, as a dad, it's kind of cool to see, but if you could look back, like, what would you tell like a first year teacher? Like if you could tell yourself something, when you're starting, like a year ago version of yourself, or, a kid, let's say you have a friend that's getting ready to be a teacher, which I think you actually do have one that's getting ready to start teaching. Man, would you give them any advice, or what would you kind of say to them to get them more prepared than maybe you felt at first?
I think the number one thing is don't expect to be perfect. Because like I went in, I was thinking I had this like picturesque views from all the movies you see like of teachers like teaching and like building these awesome relationships with kids, and it looks flawless on camera. Like it's not gonna be a perfect world. The classroom is crazy. Don't expect to be perfect. I've made plenty of mistakes in the first year, and I probably will make more. But the only thing is you have to learn from your mistakes and just constantly adapt, because these kids are going through like such a changing time in their life. They're growing and constantly changing. You have to be able to change on the fly. And I think that's something that I learned right off the bat was you're not gonna be perfect. It's not possible. It's public school, and kids are crazy, man. Like I was the same way when I was that age. Like you got to learn from the mistakes that you make and totally be prepared to make mistakes. And the number two thing I think is just focus on the relationships with the kids. Like you said, I've developed this like relationship with my kids where they like me, I like hanging out with them, and the learning will come after that. If you focus so hard on just making sure we're learning this, learning that, they're not gonna. It's gonna
test scores.
Exactly, data. And that stuff's important. Like focusing on that is very important. Sure. But the number one thing is making sure these kids feel safe and like feel like you have their back. Yeah. And I think I've done a fairly good job of that, like you said, is these kids actually enjoy coming to my class and they can trust me to have their back in situations. And I think that's the number one thing, because in the end, this 8th grade science, like when they get out of school, they're not going to need to know plate tectonics, but they do need to know how to be functional members of society, and they know how to be good people. And so like just developing that relationship, teaching them like the little intangible stuff that maybe they might not get at home or something like that, as far as how to be a good person, be nice to people.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. And so, I mean, so we're at this point of your first year, and things have gone fairly well. Like you've had some success, like you know, teacher of the month 1 month, and now you're just recently are going to be a teacher next year at the 9th grade campus for the high school, and you've been teaching. You're the head coach of the sophomore baseball team at Conroe High. I mean, it's got to feel kind of good to step on that field, and now you're directing traffic. Now you're like casting the vision. You're motivating, and you were this guy, for 4 years on that same field. I mean, tell us how it's. I mean, obviously it's different, but like, what has to come out in you as a coach that maybe was a little different as a player?
I think controlling my emotions is the number one thing, because like as far like a difference, when I was a player, I played like you saw me. I played with my heart on my sleeve. Like I was constantly like I was fired up at all times, and I do that. But it's really hard to control like when something bad happens. You can't be the guy that just blows up on your team, because I mean they're 14-year-old kids. I can't just get real mad like I could at myself when I was just playing, because now I have to constantly build up these kids to move on from the next place. So controlling my emotions is the big difference, I think, because I didn't really think about controlling my emotions when I was playing. I just went out there and played 100% as long as I could. But now it's like having to step back, and I'm still learning how to do that. Like it's obviously something that you grow in, and a lot of my fellow coaches have helped me with that. And so I think the number one difference would be controlling your emotions. It's definitely different though.
Yeah.
As far as playing to coaching, I tell my kids every day is like, coaching is awesome, but I mean, I would cut off my arm to go play one more game with that jersey on. Like, and they don't really quite grasp it yet, because I didn't at that age. But my number one thing that I'm trying to get through them is don't take it for granted, because like you will literally blink and next thing you know, you're at senior night and they're calling your name.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, speaking of how fast the season can end, when you were a freshman, you broke your leg about what? Not even halfway through the season?
About halfway through district, yeah.
Yeah, so we all know that it's one play away from you being on the sideline, and so I like that message, is to just make them take it, every moment.
Play it like it's your last.
Yeah, and you talk about how your emotions and your body language and stuff like that, because we're always preaching body language to kids, and
Definitely.
Hey, never let them see that it affected you. I can only imagine, because you're my kid. I know that's got to be a challenge, because you come by that honestly. But
for sure.
So are you okay? So you're coaching I say the sophomore team, but they're mostly freshmen, right? There's some sophomores in there, and then you're assisting the JV. So there's two teams that you're involved in, and you guys have had a decent season. I mean, historically, Conroe sub-varsity has had some challenges, and maybe 500's a good record right now. So, what kind of potential do you see in some of these kids, and what's the future of Conroe baseball looking like so far?
Very bright. The future is going to be bright. I came in with low expectations, because I know the sophomore team and JV, they've struggled in the past, and they've outperformed my expectations. Like I tell them every day, I was like, I feel I'm the luckiest first year coach on the planet, in my opinion. Like these guys, they want to succeed so badly, and like even when we're on a 3-game losing streak, I think is what, and these kids still come in every day and they are getting after it, and we didn't have that. Like looking back, we would kind of start losing track. Once we lose a couple games, like people would be like, oh, same old Conroe, here we go. But I mean, we have four or five wins where we were down by about 4 or 5 runs in the last inning and we came back and won. Then they're fighters. At least from what I've seen on the sophomore JV, I know the varsity is the same way, but they're dogs. And that's what I asked them to be, is just give me 9 guys ready to fight to the last out every time. And that's what they've given me. And I can't speak highly enough of this group of guys that I've coached so far. They've made it so much fun. And they're funny to be around too. Like it's a great age. They're like sophomores and freshmen, and some juniors on JV. Like they're funny guys, and so like they make it really fun. And I tell them all the time, like y'all make it awesome. I love doing it.
Well, and I agree, because I think you can only coach so much, and if you can inherit kids or get kids recruited that are have the heart, have the head for it, like you can show them how to play.
Right.
But if you can't always teach like down 5 in the last inning with 2 outs and then come back and win. Like you can't really, that DNA isn't always just automatic.
And that's what I'm trying to get through to them, is like we're going to be playing against the Woodlands, Oak Ridge. These guys are going to have more talent than us. I promise you. Like, every time we walk in that field, they're probably going to be more talented, but they're not going to be tougher than us. And they've really embraced that. Like, they all the way to the last out. Like, I promise you, if you're going to beat us, it's going to be hard. And you're going to have to fight for it. And you're going to have to use every bit of that talent that you have. Like, we don't have the $300 hitting lessons that those guys have at the whatever it is that they have. And they kind of play with that chip on their shoulder. And I like that. That's what we need at Conroe, to realize, like, and eventually, like, it's the tide's starting to turn already. You can see it across the board on all three levels of baseball. It's like people are starting to realize Conroe is on the rise. So to answer your question, the future for Conroe baseball is only up. In my opinion.
Yeah, I like it. I like that you said you're breeding some dogs over there, and you guys are coming up with some grit, and the talent will come. But man, before we let you go, I want to hear about. So you and I've talked, and you and a couple of your buddies you're so passionate about baseball that you would almost love it to be year round. So you guys not only have a heart for just what the Conroe High kid and building that program, but the youth of this area. And so you guys have started a baseball organization. Talk a little bit about that and what your kind of vision is for that.
Yeah, so me and two of my former Conroe teammates, Mick and Wyatt, we decided we are going to start a youth select organization. And it started because as I started coaching, I realized, like, for the high school, like, there's so much that these kids didn't know that, like, I knew going in. I'm like, they don't know, like, phrases and stuff of baseball because they just weren't taught it at a young age. And I'm like, I talked to Mick and I was like, dude, they need this at, like, the ground level. And he's like, why don't we just, like, start one? And I was like a team? He's like, yeah, let's start a select team. And so we got together, and these two guys that I'm doing it with, they know just as much baseball as me, if not more. Like, so we're really passionate about teaching these kids at a young age. So 8U is where it starts, and all the way up to 13 years old, the fundamentals of baseball. So we're trying to get through them early on, like the fundamentals, the development that will eventually, when they get to high school, it'll help them have an advantage over the kids that didn't
baseball
get that.
IQ,
right? The baseball, like the stuff, the intangible stuff, as far as knowing where to go with the ball with 2 outs, stuff like that, that they don't really have at this age. That I've noticed they don't have. And so that's why we called it the Texas Pipeliners baseball, because we wanted to develop this pipeline to high school and college baseball eventually. So right now it's going to be a 9U team, an 11U team, and a 13U team. So 8 and 9, 10 and 11, 12 and 13-year-olds. And tryouts we have tryouts on the 16th and the 30th at Conroe High Baseball. And if you want to sign up, you can follow us on, like, Facebook. There's a Texas Pipeliner Baseball, which has all the information on how to register for tryouts. Or you can send an email to texaspipelinersbaseball@gmail.com, and that's how they register for tryouts. But yeah, it's just a select team that we want to start because we love baseball. Like, the three of us just eat baseball up, and I want to do it all the time. I love coaching. I love being around it. So I figured, why not start a little select team? So that's what we're going to do. It's going to be fun. It's going to be for kids in the Conroe area. I mean, you don't have to be going to Conroe High School to do it. It's just in the community that we love so much, this area. Yeah. So, yeah.
That's cool. No, I like it. You got to start early with them, especially in a sport like baseball, because like, there's so much to learn that is not even like a game within a game. So, no, it's good. So you got a tryout tomorrow, and this won't air till a couple of days later, but you got one on the 30th as well. Cool. And you go to TexasPipelinersBaseball.com?
No, email us at TexasPipelinersBaseball@gmail.
Got
and
it.
there's a Facebook page with the same name that has the information.
Well, cool, man. This has been fun.
Yeah,
I've enjoyed this. I'm glad you could make it work. I know you got a busy day, so I appreciate it. Audience, this was fun for me. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was entertaining and inspiring. And with that, he's been Dawson Shibley. We've been The Bridge Podcast. Stay connected. Hey, we got a good one for you today on the Bridge Podcast TX. As always, we're talking to influential leaders in the community here, and we've got a good one today. Ryan Hudson with Hudson Realty Partners, who has had a long career in commercial real estate. He's been in the financial realm, doing some consulting and some management, and branched out on his own, which, as we all know, takes a little bit of fortitude and some vision and taking a risk in himself, which you're going to hear about in the show. And you're also going to hear about what he does in his quote-unquote spare time as a reserve for the constable's office, and some of the stories he's got are pretty incredible. Something you may not have known because I didn't know. And then we dig in a little bit to some of his vision for growth and just what he sees down the line for Conroe and what he's got his eye on to grow his company. So I think it's going to be great. So I hope you enjoy this episode with Ryan Hudson. Welcome back to another episode of the Bridge Podcast, where we're connecting commerce with community, and we've got another good one today. We never disappoint. I promise you good guests, and we've got another one. I've got Ryan Hudson from Hudson Realty Partners. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hey, man. Glad you could be here. Nice Friday afternoon. Got to know you sort of, via a mutual friend of ours, and so I thought, man, we gotta get this guy on the phone. So I got him on the phone, and man, it turns out you've got your hands in a few things. And what is this? I see you're a reserve sergeant with the Montgomery County Precinct Constable's Office, Precinct 3.
Yeah, that's right.
So give us a background. So are you, where you grew up a little bit, kind of why Conroe, what you've done to this point, how you got your real estate company started?
Yeah, sure. So I was born over in West Houston. I graduated from Stratford High School in '98. My grandfather lived up here in Corinthian Point, which I guess is technically Willis, but I spent a lot of time in Montgomery County on Lake Conroe, visiting my grandfather and my grandmother, and spending a lot of time on the lake, boating and fishing and skiing. It was very close to my grandfather. But grew up in West Houston. I left Texas to go to school in Baton Rouge for 4 years, but I've been in Texas ever since. And what brought me to Montgomery County was I had a client that hired me. Intergy was one of my clients when I was consulting, and they moved me to the Woodlands, and that was kind of my first full-time being up here in Montgomery County. And then with Conroe being right up the road and all of it has to offer, and still going out to the lake all the time, ended up moving to Conroe about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And have been here ever since.
Yeah, so I mean, you've got a couple of different things. You're involved in the Lions Club, of course, the Masonic Lodge. Tell us, I guess, for people that don't know, kind of a little bit about your involvement in those organizations.
Yeah. So I'm a pretty new member of Lions Club. I joined last summer, I guess, end of last summer, and service organization, great group of folks. We've been volunteering this week out at the Montgomery County Fair at the concession stand. Just great camaraderie, a lot of fun, a lot of good people. We meet for lunch every Wednesday out at the Lone Star Convention Center.
Okay.
Really great group. Come visit if you haven't made it yet.
Oh, I need to, yeah.
And then Conroe Lodge is right here in downtown Conroe. A lot of people don't know about it. There's not a big sign. It's a pretty discreet building right on the courthouse square, but it's at 311 Simonton, if you know where Conroe Central Market is.
Okay.
Mike Canada's shop. He leases the bottom floor from us, and then we have the lodge upstairs. There's a lot of superstition and things tossed around about masonry, but it's just a fraternity.
Okay.
Their motto is to take good guys and make them better.
Really?
And so, yeah, we do a lot of service projects. It's not a service organization; it's a fraternity, but a very, very good group of charitable men.
Yeah, I never really knew. I mean, I guess I'm just not, in tune with certain things, but I never knew what that was.
Yeah.
I never knew what it kind of consisted of, but it sounds like a cool thing to have. How many people are over there, you said, are It's members, I assume?
There is. There's over 250 members of Conroe Lodge. There's several lodges throughout Montgomery County, but Conroe has about 250 members, and we've got a pretty active group here in Conroe.
Really? That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, man, I've had Mayor Chikoski on,
Yeah.
and I know you know him, and so this commercial real estate firm that you've got, you started, what was it, help me, what year did you start?
Yeah, so I was with a big outfit in the Woodlands for about 6 years.
Okay.
And then just last year, I stepped out and broke off on my own and started my own real estate company, started Hudson Realty Partners.
Wow.
And so, I'm kind of new. I'm about 3.5 months into it.
Yeah.
But I took some time off to help my wife with some things that she had going on.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so yeah, just now really finally within the last 30 days really getting to focus on it, do it full time.
And it's commercial, right? Real estate.
That's right.
Investments, growth. Like I don't know if you could have picked a better city in the country to
Right.
really start doing that.
Exactly.
Which that's not news to you. You were
Absolutely.
probably pretty intentional with that. Man, so what about, I guess, your team? Is it just you? You got a few folks that you're bringing on, brokers as well?
Exactly.
And so you guys are sort of eyeballing the entire landscape of Montgomery County, or are you kind of even branching out even further? You just want to kind of start small right there?
Yeah, Montgomery County is definitely our wheelhouse. We'll do deals down in North Harris County. We'll go east and west and north to Walker County. But you start getting out of our market and our expertise. We'll refer it out. Like we like to stick with what we know and what we're exceptional at.
Yeah.
So yeah, Montgomery County is where we like to stay and focus.
Yeah. So when you start a business, I don't know, talk to the audience today that, we've got some people that maybe are just starting out kind of like you, maybe not new to that industry, but new to having the shingle have their name on it. And man, give us some encouragement about kind of some things you had to fight through, maybe emotionally, mentally, and then things that you're excited most about by being kind of your own boss, your own entity.
Yeah. So, I've sort of always been under the umbrella of, when I finished school, I worked in corporate America for, 12, 13 years. And, you've got that salary every 2 weeks or every 30 days and that comfort factor. And then when I decided to start my career in commercial real estate, I went to work for one of the big, top 15, firm in the greater Houston area. And you go from being a salaried employee to, you're 100% commission. And, but, you still, you're still with a bigger firm and there's, a certain level of comfort there that, you've got some people to help you and things like that. But, you do it for a while and you make some connections and you make some contacts and you meet some people and you get very, very comfortable and, there just becomes a time, at least for me, if I'm not growing, I get stagnant and that's not a place I like to be. Mm-hmm. And so, I've always kind of had this entrepreneurial spirit about me and just decided it was time. Kind of the stars and moon aligned and, it was the right time to do my own thing.
Yeah. So you already had sort of a network created where it wasn't like you were totally flying blind and jumping out into the deep end without any sort of head start. But It is different whenever you're talking about if I don't close, I don't eat, like close a deal type of thing. And so, that's, I think, probably the most important part of that, why people don't do it. Like we've got a lot of people that are out there that have passion for it, knowledge for it, a network even, but man, they just haven't got to the point where it makes sense to take that risk and take that leap. And so, I think that's commendable. It's admirable that you obviously have invested in yourself, taken a chance on yourself, and you've got a support system. Your household is just kind of full of successful people, really. Man, what about Conroe have you seen change so much since you've sort of came up, and even from the days of your grandfather and hanging out with him? Like, I know it's totally different.
Yeah. From the days of growing up with my grandfather, we spent a lot of time out at the lake. But even just the time that I've been here, just look at downtown by itself. The landscaping's changed. And I think you had Frank Jackson on the show. I think he had his soft opening at the table recently. And just the Moco Food Hall, and it seems like every time you turn your head and there's a new concept out there, and I think it's making Conroe become a destination.
Wow.
I know when my grandfather and we were up here, Conroe was a sleepy blue collar, place where especially downtown that's just where the employees
quiet,
went to go work.
No traffic.
Yeah, exactly. and now there's a huge housing demand down here. People want to. They want that live-work atmosphere, and it's much different. It kind of reminds me of Houston, 25 or 30 years ago when Houston was the place where you just drive down there to work and then you leave. Mm-hmm. I feel like Conroe is starting to become that place where you go to work and then there's entertainment and then you eat and you have everything and everything right there in downtown.
Yeah, it's becoming sort of that one size fits all for everybody, that one-stop shop, even just kind of, just like you said, downtown. I mean, even throughout the outlying areas, I mean, the lake is doing what it's doing. And then, I mean, I know when I came to visit grandparents at April Sound when I was young from Oklahoma, I mean, man, you couldn't, if there was another car with you on 105, then that was traffic. But I remember, and now it's just you can't find a place that sits still long enough to put a house or anything on. Do you have some sites set on property out in the lake area, or as it expands, maybe north? I don't know.
Yeah.
What's kind of your holy grail right now of what you got your sights set on?
Yeah, so I do. I've got some development tracks kind of on the north side, closer in the Willis area, North Conroe. I've got a building down here in downtown Conroe that's listed for sale. So I've kind of got different types of inventory right now. So we're talking to the market's really good right now. The housing market seems like it's been I'll call the housing market hysterical. A lot of the commercial activity that I'm seeing, particularly on the investment stuff, if you've got an income producing asset right now, it's gonna sell pretty quick and it's gonna sell for an aggressive price. But no, the market's good right now. People are looking for places to put their cash, and real estate is a really good way to preserve capital and grow your investment. So it's been good.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's ripe for the picking right now in what you're doing. I mean, pretty much, I think, I would like to know the statistics of how many people have gotten their real estate license in the last 3 to 5 years in Montgomery County. Like, I bet it's staggering compared to the previous 5 years. So do you have a background? Because you haven't mentioned a background in law enforcement.
No.
How did this come about where you're now a reserve sergeant? Like, talk to us about it. It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I don't have any. My grandfather was in the military.
Okay.
But outside of that, I don't have any connection or relationships to folks, at least in my family, in law enforcement or. It really started when I was working for Entergy. I was traveling, 200 nights a year. I spent a lot of time with a guy in New Orleans. That's where their headquarters was. So I was in New Orleans all the time. I had an office in New Orleans, and I spent a lot of time getting to know him. He was kind of one of my counterparts, and so there was a lot of coordination that, we had to be linked up on. And former commander, New Orleans Police Department, and working in corporate America now. And we would go and we would spend some time outside of work together. And he would talk to me about, being a commander of the New Orleans Police Department, how much he loved it and how satisfying it was and just how great it was. And, he said that he took this job in corporate America because, his family had some aspirations and, he wanted to be able to provide better for his family. But, law enforcement was his true calling. And just to hear him talk about, some of the things that he got to do and how it made him feel. And it was really, really, I admired him for it. And so he started telling me about how most law enforcement agencies, they have a reserve program where you're an unpaid volunteer. You have to go through and meet all of the training requirements and pass all the same tests and qualifications as the full-time guys, but you're an unpaid volunteer. And so I ended up, I guess it was in 2015, I ended up enrolling in night school and put myself through the law enforcement academy as a hobby. And that's kind of how much what an impact this guy had on me.
Right.
And so for 13 months, I attended the Lone Star Law Enforcement Academy. And when I got finished, I developed a relationship with Constable Gable, the Precinct 3 Constable down in South County. Great guy. And he brought me on as a reserve deputy and got to know the guys, was able to do a bunch of civilian ride-alongs during my time in the academy and just fell in love with it. The teamwork, the camaraderie, it's just overall just a tremendous experience. And this is me speaking as an unpaid volunteer, which is a little bit different if you're on the payroll.
Yeah.
Being a cop and having that as your profession, it's a hard job. You don't go home on time.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff that you have to see and the things that you're exposed to, it's a very, very difficult job. But I love it. There were a couple of years where I even contemplated going and doing it full time.
Really?
Yeah. It's a great group, especially that precinct 3 group and what Constable Gable's done. It's a really great group of professional guys, and I love them. Some of my best friends are at that agency.
That's so cool, man. Well, what would have to happen for you you said ride-alongs. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you've been commissioned into duty even as a volunteer. What would have to happen for the reserve community to have to get on the streets and actually be, I don't even think deputized is the word, but like what would have to, is that sort of a when chaos is ensuing type of situation, or they're down, short-handed? How's that go?
Yeah, so we're required to do about 18 hours. We're required to do 18 hours a month. And it's whatever. It's training. It's going and running traffic control. It's going and helping out with special assignments. Working the fair. We've got the fair going on this week.
Oh, really? You guys?
If someone calls in sick and they need a shift covered. But yeah, I would say my first 3 or 4 years, I was working, 30, 35, almost 40 hours a week a lot of times.
Really?
Oh, I was volunteer. And that was in addition to my day job in corporate America. And
wow.
Yeah, I would jump in a patrol car on Friday night and I would live in it until Sunday night. And
wow.
I absolutely loved it.
Is the constable's office the only one that does the reserves, or is that city? Is that sheriff? Is that all of law enforcement has that availability?
Most agencies have a reserve division.
Wow, okay.
I think every constable's office in Montgomery County does. The sheriff's office. I know each municipality has a little bit different program. I don't know all the details.
That's pretty cool. Like I would think that's. I don't know. I guarantee you audience didn't know that. Like some of you didn't know that there's even a reserve group for law enforcement. That's really cool, man. So I guess if people are wanting to do that, they can go and get certified or do the classes and then look it up and go pursue that. Right. But sounds like it made an impact on you. And I had no intention of really diving into that, but I think that's a cool. Nobody really has had that story, so You're top of the list with kind of unique deal that you're doing. So you're out at the fairgrounds all the time between Lions Club and the reserve. Yeah. Like that's where you live. You have a tent out there. Well, man, what gets you fired up about Conroe? Like, we're looking around. We talked about downtown. You're in a great industry for this time, this season of Conroe, which could be the next 10 to 20 years for all I know. But what gets you fired up? Like, what gets you out of bed in the morning?
I love doing deals. I've got, between work and some of the organizations I'm involved with, I have a lot to be excited about. Obviously work, I work with some really great clients. I work with some of my clients are here in downtown. I've got clients all over the county. I love doing deals. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of like Jody. I'm a deal junkie. Even when I was in corporate America, when I was consulting with Price Waterhouse, I love putting deals together. I love going and working the next assignment. It's just something that I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to retire. I love doing deals. I love putting deals together for myself. I love putting deals together for my clients. Yeah.
It's interesting in what I see from a distance in commercial real estate is the sales cycle's not, it's not like going and selling a T-shirt at Academy. Like it is, it takes a while. So I can only imagine the agitation and the anxiety, like when you see that close enough to touch it, but it's like a month away or you're waiting on inspection or you're waiting on approval of some kind or funding or whatever. Like that's gotta be, especially for deal junkies, like that's part of the addiction, I'm sure, but still personally, I'm not real patient. Did you have to get there at some point of just kind of realizing it's a process?
Yeah, your first couple years, you're easily excited, but after you've done enough deals, and I don't get too excited too easily.
Really?
I've had deals that I've worked on for I've had several deals that I worked on for 2+ years, where and as a real estate broker, I work on a contingency basis.
Yeah.
If it doesn't close or the deal doesn't get done,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how close we got to the finish line.
No.
And I might have 300 or 400 hours invested in a deal that doesn't close. And so it happens. It comes with the territory. You can't. All you can do is learn from it. You can't. If you get disappointed and you sulk and you let it bring you down, you just got to keep.
There's things that you can't control in the
can't
process,
control.
right? Like you wish you could touch everything and actually
Sure.
almost have the joystick that maneuvers all the players involved, but that doesn't always happen. And the audience is sitting here, and there's people like that right now that maybe are beating their head against the wall in a certain profession, and they have these deals fall through, right? Or maybe they don't get to have this extra bonus check for the month. I mean, I'm in sales. I know what that's like, but there's so many backdoor, backstage things happening.
Right.
Give some advice today. I know this isn't we're not talking it's not a Dr. Phil show, but give some folks some help maybe with what they struggle with on frustration when a deal doesn't close or something doesn't turn out like they thought and they put all this work in. Like, what gets you through that, man?
Yeah, there's I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. If a deal doesn't close, or all the way from the trivial things as a deal not closing to losing a loved one, there's everything happens for a reason, and you may not know in the moment what that reason is, but God is either dropping a pebble or a boulder on you, and he's doing it for a purpose. And so, I remember during COVID, every single one of my deals either fell out of contract or got put on pause. And I went from going and having, my best year ever to having a pipeline of 0. Mm-hmm. And there was a reason for that, and it taught me a lot. It gave me a lot of perspective. I hear a lot of people talk about the real estate industry back in 2008 and some of the things that happened, and that was kind of my first time to see rough water in the industry. And at the time I didn't understand, but looking back, I learned a whole bunch from that. And everything worked out, but I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason, and God drops pebbles or boulders, or He taps us on the shoulder and redirects us for certain reasons.
Yeah, He definitely maybe He's trying to show us something that we would have not ordinarily seen or learned, and I get that for sure.
Yeah.
What's on the horizon for you guys? So I hate this question in interviews when I'm interviewing for a job or whatever, but 3 to 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Let's do the crystal ball thing that's so cliche, but I feel like it matters because, as a business owner, you've got to almost have a vision, right? You got to be, everything's a game of chess where you're 2 or 3 steps ahead, right? You got to sort of forecast. So give us a 5-year kind of vision. If we were to talk in 5 years and look back and go, yeah, man, this is what I knew was going to happen. This is what I wanted to happen. This is what I kind of had a vision for my company. What's it going to look like?
Right now, I just want to grow the business, but slowly, with the right people, the right skill sets. I think it's almost like every week we have opportunities to onboard or bring new people on, and we've decided that in the beginning we're going to keep it kind of pretty small and start slow. Right now, we're still really enjoying being able to focus on clients and focus on getting deals done versus, if you grow real fast, then you're focusing on the business.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And, like I said, I'm a deal. I love doing the deals. I love growing the business too, though. So we're just going to go real slow. We're going to kind of check and adjust as opportunities come along. And we're just going to grow the business real slow. So I hope to be doing a lot of the same thing, just on a little bit bigger scale 3 to 5 years down the road.
Yeah, because right now it's important, the infrastructure that you're building within a culture, like the team, so that then you can, obviously, from the ground up, you're starting to, because if you rush right in, and just make this foundation enormous without really going through checkpoints and building that infrastructure, like we said.
Exactly.
I think you're right on, man. And I don't own a business, but if I were to do it, I would think that would be very important.
Absolutely.
To not put the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
And because you could outgrow. I mean, you could outrun the growth. You could outgrow the process, whatever, tomorrow probably if you wanted to.
I could bring on a new broker every single week. I could have 30 people working with me right now, and that's not what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
It's got to be the right people. It's got to be the right timing. It's got to be the right personalities, the right skill sets. They got to be the right fit.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, man, I think it's cool that. So is your office in downtown? Is it in Conroe?
we're securing office space right now here
Oh,
in downtown.
you are?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
All right. So that's good. That's good to know. We'll have to come by and see. Are you going to do any kind of opening? Are you going to promote that at all? Maybe get some people excited about your new office or what?
We haven't gotten that far. We'll be up on the second floor of a building right here on the square. More on that to come.
Yeah.
But we'll probably do something.
Yeah, we got to know where you're at,
Yeah,
man.
we
We got to know to send all these people that want to be brokers
Yeah, right.
that you're going to turn away right now. We want to know where to send them. But no, that's awesome. I'm always excited to see like somebody that just has you got a passion for something, you've got experience in it, you've got knowledge, and now you're building a team, and now you're kind of putting legs on this dream you have. And man, I just think it's cool that somebody steps out, has faith in themselves, and of course you got a good support. Your wife's very supportive, and
Definitely.
you got a presence in Conroe, and you got a network built.
Yeah. It
So
feels
kids as well, right?
good. We've got an 8-year-old who's goes to school right here downtown.
All right.
So we'll all be downtown. I'll be downtown. My wife's downtown.
Okay.
The 8-year-old's downtown.
Yeah.
So we'll all be here.
All right.
It
Well,
feels good.
give us all that for those of us who haven't made it to the fair yet. Give us something that's kind of stood out to you that you've thought was pretty cool or loved about it, or maybe give somebody a taste test on what they're going to see when they come out this weekend.
So I've been going to the Montgomery County Fair for a lot of years. The cook-off is this weekend.
Yeah.
The carnival, my 8-year-old, he's going to the carnival on Saturday. So really look into that. He's an adrenaline junkie. We took him to the Catfish Festival last year, and he rode every single ride that there was. He just has no fear. And so, if
That's cool.
I'm going to feed that for him if he
That's
wants to go
cool.
ride scary rides.
He didn't get that from you, or what?
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he sees me do stuff, and I think that gives him a little bit of encouragement that,
Nice.
That's cool. But yeah, he's ate up with it. So we're going to do that. We're going to eat barbecue, go ride some rides, and enjoy this beautiful weather that we're having.
It's real nice. It's real
Yeah.
nice. Well, man, I appreciate you coming on today. I mean, I've gotten to kind of get a glimpse inside of what drives you and what your business is about, and kind of the vision you have. Because I mean, I hear good things about you. I know folks that know you, and we kind of have mutual, like I said, and so it's cool to watch your journey, man, and it's cool to see where you're going with it, and it's going to only grow. We
Thank
know,
you.
and so I appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course, audience. He's been Ryan Hudson. We've been the Bridge Podcast. Stay connected.